the president, and he has to be very careful. And as you know, he is a process person, but the process is deliberate because it buys him time to ensure that whatever investigation does not link it to himself. So when you look at how the Pala matter was handled, initially the president told us that the money that was found in his farm were proceeds of sale, that he was in the business of selling. And later the story started changing. So what you saw is the president subjecting that process to what you call a process, which ultimately led to him being exonerated. Now imagine what
guys, so this professor, he's a political analyst, Professor Sipo Sepe. I've never really seen a bold, fearless political analyst like him. Although Swana, the last video I made with this analyst, Sandile Swana, really sharp. But this guy is also really bold and really fearless in his analysis, especially now in terms of this continuous creations of commissions of inquiry. One of the things he's helping me understand, opening my eyes to understand in South Africa, is the reasons why it appears as though whenever allegations regarding crime associated to politicians, or what many of you in the comments have called the comrades in the ANC or all of that, what we see is that there's always a creation of a commission of inquiry, an investigative process that takes a long time and produces a long report. And at the end of the day, we don't really see justice met. Many have complained about, the issue with, the Zondo Commission reports, that there has not been, John Steenhuisen speaks about this a lot, that there haven't been really persecutions or, justice that follows through. There was the case with the VBS scandal as well, a long report, and all of that. But we didn't see, and now with this whole allegation that General Mkwanazi has actually come out to pour regarding the police, the kind of issues going on in SAPS, indicting Police Commissioner Mchunu. I think even the Deputy Commissioner of Police, Sibia, I'll check if he's the Deputy Commissioner, but at the end of the day, I think he has been put on suspension. And many of, like you saw in the last video I made with the MK veteran, arguing that these suspensions and this leave of absence, Mchunu was given a leave of absence, Sibia, I think suspension, that they still get a salary and all, and many people still feel that this really isn't amounting to the extent of justice that such allegations demand in a country like South Africa that's ridden with so much violence and crime. Neil Debe argues that it almost feels as though there's a war in South Africa, but the country is not at war. 82 murders a day, femicides, crime, drug cartels, and all of that. So this Professor Sipo Sepe now is actually opening my eyes to something we might have missed in the whole analysis. He's arguing that these commissions of inquiry might be one of the ways in which the ANC comrades, or probably President Ramaphosa, seeks to be buying time, all right, so that the investigation might not be linked to maybe himself or some other really important people. We know that President Ramaphosa has his hands somewhat tied, in terms of the skeleton of the Pala case, where these dollars were found on a couch on his farm. This professor is actually speaking a lot also on the Pala case, arguing that when the Pala case first came, it appears as though President Ramaphosa told a lie to South Africans. And I know maybe if the DA, now the DA actually argues that Senzo Mchunu lied to Parliament. So if this whole thing with President Ramaphosa lying, telling lies as well, in terms of, how the money that was found in that couch got smuggled into the country. If the DA decides to pick that up as he's picking Senzo Mchunu lying to the Parliament, then we might have an explosive case coming through. But anyway, this professor argues that when the Pala case came up, President Ramaphosa, I don't want to spill all the beans, but he's exposing a lot of details regarding how the whole Pala case came to be, and then the lies that went before that, and then eventually you know, we now got to realize the truth about the, and probably, who knows, if maybe that's the truth. What we know about the Pala Pala case is really the truth. He's actually speaking about a lot about, you know, how it appears that the ANC operates, that this whole thing with commission of inquiry, leaves of absence, suspension and all that, it might be a way in which the ANC seems to try to protect the comrades, because he's arguing that it would really be a challenge for President Ramaphosa to throw his comrades under the bus. It almost appears as though it's an indwelling kind of like, I don't know, practice, so to speak. And at the end of the day, the major brunt, the people who are carrying the major brunt of this maybe weak level of justice to be met in terms of this kind of allegations are the people. He's speaking about how, you know, at the end of the day, it appears that General Mkwanazi now seems to be seen in the light of a whistleblower. But at the end of the day, you know, if the judiciary is demanding, because I think now that the High Court or the judiciary is actually demanding that General Mkwanazi brings forth evidence to really back up the claims he has, because the claims he has given are really damning claims that, you know, at the end of the day, it actually stains the name of the judiciary, because he argues that, you know, high members in the judiciary and in the police are actually tied in that whole issue. But then at the end of the day, the judiciary now wants this evidence. And this professor is arguing that if Mkwanazi is supposed to bring forth this evidence to the fore, then he has to be promised protection, because at the end of the day, I remember there was a whistleblowing case where it was argued that, you know, there has to be a law protecting whistleblowers, because whistleblowing is actually one of the most effective ways. I think I was listening to one political analyst arguing calling it Mpimpi hotline. I think there was a time when there was an Mpimpi hotline. I don't know yet what that really means, but the whole thing with whistleblowing is a really effective way to expose some of this rot that is actually in the system. But when these whistleblowers come forward, are they protected in a country that is as highly, you know, violent as South Africa, so to speak? So at the end of the day, the professor is arguing that if the judiciary wants Mkwanazi to present the evidence, the raw evidence he has to be promised protection, and that's actually something that, you know, probably needs to be looked into. So he's exposing a lot of issues. I think it's really important that we all listen, especially to the fact that, you know, the basis for these commissions of inquiries that take a long time. I think this one now is going to be maybe till the end of the year. We'll be expecting to see a report. And that 6-month period, bro, who knows how far people might have forgotten about this case. Who knows what might have happened to General Mkwanazi. He might have left for South Africa for abroad. We don't know where this case is going to. And, you know, in the light of the election build-up and all of that, I don't know if probably this case might be swept under the rug. So at the end of the day, you know, the professor is trying to break down the circumstances regarding how it is that these commissions of inquiry end up becoming ways to protect the comrades and not throw the comrades under the bus. So I think it's really important that we listen to this analysis to really understand where this case is going regarding the allegations, damning allegations against SAPS. We've been seeing a lot of complaints against the police since the time of Becky Cele, and you know, when Chris Pappas argues that, you know, Becky Cele seems to be what he called a minister of funerals, because he was always at funerals of death, where the police had to be always at having a preemptive strike, you know, prior to the murders occurring. But yet we had a Becky Cele who was always, you know, giving speeches at this. So Chris Pappas of the DA argued that, you know, what he sees is a minister of funerals rather than a minister of police, so to speak. So at the end of the day, this professor is really exposing a lot of things regarding Pala Pala, regarding this whole thing with the commission of inquiry, and regarding why it is that Mchunu was given a leave of absence rather than being fired, so to speak. And at the end of the day, I think I want us to engage in a robust conversation. So let's quickly listen to him quickly. Really listen to the end, really powerful, and share your thoughts in the comments.
When you look at the fact that there have been calls for this investigation to take place, with Parliament now saying that the 3 committees are going to then be looking at this and then making some considerations to the National Assembly on how do they move forward from this. Prof, how much of this should also be looked at through the lens of politics?
Well, it's very difficult at the moment for the president, and he has to be very careful. And as you know, he is a process person, but the process is deliberate because it buys him time to ensure that whatever investigation does not link it to himself and to others. Remember what Mkwanazi says. It says that these allegations that are grave involve politicians. It involves members of the prosecution. It involves senior police. It also involves members of the judiciary. So when you look at how the Pala matter was handled, initially the president told us that the money that was found in his farm were proceeds of sale, that he was in the business of selling. And later the story started changing. So what you saw is the president subjecting that process to what you call a process, which ultimately led to him being exonerated. Now imagine what Mkwanazi actually said. And as the film indicates, you also have a possibility where people who are going to look at this, who are in these committees, may also be implicated. So this is not going to bring comfort to the people of South Africa. And even then, people have to check which judges are going to be put there, because for as long as you have CR17, we don't know who may have received money and who may have given the president money. So it is possible that he'll take his time and make sure that first he does not throw his own comrades under the bus. Remember, it was Mchunu, the minister, who said the Pala report is classified. It will not be made public. And we have always claimed, and the president has always talked about the importance of transparency. But when it comes to matters that involve him, you don't find transparency. So this notion of a process, but what we know now, as a matter of fact, is that you have a crisis of leadership within the SAPS. But not only that, when it is suggested that these are the kingpins of drugs are working with these people, then you have a problem with public trust. The question is, who guards the guardians? Yeah. So what it will lead to a sense of lawlessness. So I don't think South Africans, what you see now, you're going to see three things happening. You're going to see people going into the streets, and they're going to be calling all these politicians who are saying, calm down, to say you are actually thieves. They are going to go to the courts. They're going to go to parliament. So every side is now open for engagement. Now this is called the real side and struggle. And the question is, will the president be man enough to say, if we're going to come up with a commission of inquiry, those men and women who may be chosen are themselves not should be above suspicion. Right. But my sense is that for as long as you have certain things that are classified that involve the president, you can rest assured that the president is not going to make sure that he close ranks.
Yeah.